In 1975, our children, our girls especially, were going up to Howe to the nursery school. And one time in the wintertime, the roads were very icy, and it just made us really concerned about driving up to Howe with the children in the car. Of course, that was the time before seatbelts as well. And LaGrange Church was talking about starting a preschool. And I was friends with through United Methodist Women, a gal in Elkhart, and they had a really profitable going nursery school. And so I was talking with her, and we shared ideas, and I went over and observed and decided that we would start a preschool here in LaGrange. And then Marcia came on as teacher. We were friends. Our girls were friends, well, her girl and my boy and girls. So she was our first teacher. And now Jeannie Park, E-Step. At the time that I was director, it was Jeannie Park.
Marcia Long Bontrager. At the time I was Marcia Long.
Barb Hartz.
Yeah.
Barb Hartz was one of the first teachers. Deanna Chrisman was another one, but been Deanna Johnson at the time.
Okay, this is Carolyn McCoy, and I was director here in the 80s.
My name is Susanna Hassel.
Sarah Vanderbeck.
Margaret Taylor.
Lori Bond.
Sandy Rassler.
Dale Waltz.
Susie Martin.
Hi, I'm Jenny Reeser.
I'm Caitlin Jordan. Sierra Hunter.
Dawn Thornsberry. Zoe started going here, and I just kind of wanted to be involved, so I volunteered here. And one day I just got called in, and Mandy was the director at that time, and I thought Zoe was in trouble because that's what she liked to do. And she's like, Zoe's not in trouble. And she said, I know that you're not doing anything at the time, and we had just lost a teacher, and they wanted me to come in and be Jenny's helper, and my life changed forever that day. So I can't thank Jenny enough. So the next 6 years I was here.
Yeah, so I started working here because my son started preschool here, and they had an opening for a teaching position, so I thought it would be super fun. It looked really fun to work here. So
That's like Marie Clark, who couldn't be here today. The kids, we would always say Mrs. Martin or Mrs. whoever, and she was Miss Marie.
Mm-hmm.
But we had, and I don't remember which one of the boys it was, but they called her Misery.
Misery. At the end of the school year, when Sarah would introduce the teachers to all the parents, after the ceremony of the diplomas and everything, she would ask the kids to say their teachers' names. And she went down the line, and she came down to me, and she says, okay, so who is this? She raised her hand, and she jumped out of that seat. She was loud and proud to say, Mrs. Be Quiet. Because I was always in charge of the hallway and always telling, please be quiet.
Jeff Bassett was the chairman for the nursery school when I was there. He thought of so many safety improvements. One of those was a better procedure for parents picking up the children. It made it safer for children, parents, and teachers.
We used to get the kids out of the cars on Spring Street, and whenever his mom would pull up, if I was the teacher getting him out, he wouldn't come out. We had to go in and get him. Anybody else, he'd come right out for, but not me. And finally she told me, he has a crush on you. So he would go.
Here now too, and we were freer to take the children on field trips, like to Kellogg's in Battle Creek, and we took them to Fort Wayne to the zoo, and just lots of fun things we got to do with the kids that some of those kids might not have ever gotten to do.
We took trips to the zoo, Fashion Farm, the library, the courthouse, the clothes and food basket, and the town park.
Year was that we went to a puppet show at the Colfax Center in South Bend. And the kids rode the church bus. We had the church bus at that time, and they rode the bus over there. And I made bingo cards up, and they had to look for things along the way, which they really enjoyed. And then when we got there, they had all made puppets that they had colored. And there were over 100 kids there at that particular performance. They had performances every hour or so for all day long that time. And one of our own, Danny Beachy, had won the prize, and he has the furry that was his prize. He got a furry puppet then. And then on the way home, we stopped by McDonald's and ate lunch, and the kids were so good that the manager came out and said, "Can I give them all an ice cream cone?" And so we really had a fun day that day.
One year we went to Dutch Creek and they had a little piglet in with the bunnies. And when you picked him up, he squealed like there was no tomorrow. But we got to snuggle him, and all of us teachers named him Crispy Bacon. And it was the best thing ever. And the camels would not leave Jenny alone. It was great. It was hilarious. It was like the best day ever.
And one of the Octobers, we went to Pumpkin Fantasyland near Ligonier, and we went with the Shipshawana preschool. My sister-in-law was teaching there at that time, and their kids and our kids went together to Pumpkin Fantasyland. And then when we came back, we had bought pumpkin muffins, and then we ate those over at the Shipshawana together.
But those were always a good time, and Margaret always would do the stories. We had a lot of good story, reading books, and then puppets. Puppets were very popular.
And then on Groundhog's Day, they really enjoyed making their groundhog puppet. And I had a little paper bag that was the cave that he was in, and he poked out of the bag.
And we had show and tell one time, and a little girl came up, and she had a small toy. And I asked her, where did she get the small toy from? And she said, Chocolate Jesus. And I asked her a few more questions about it, and, how big it was, what color it was, and things like that. And Chocolate Jesus, that's where she got it from. And finally it dawned on me, Chocolate Jesus was really Chuck E. Cheese's.
But they brought a live bat in a box. And guess who had to do that show? That's me. And I just kept saying, Dear Lord, please do not let this bat wake up. And it behaved and did well, but everybody thought that was the coolest thing, but I do not like bats.
My name is Gail Gore, and I've been connected with the preschool for years and years and years and years.
She was great with them when it came to the music and stuff. That's what, it was good.
Yes.
It's been a joy singing with the children. Sometimes they don't all sing. Well, that's one thing I learned was the patience, to help the kids learn the songs, make them enjoyable.
Mrs. Gore was actually my teacher when I went to preschool here. And so some of my favorite things are she has kept some of the songs throughout all of the years of teaching, and my very favorite one is Brown Squirrel.
I think mine is Mitten Weather.
And mine is King of the Jungle.
You cannot forget Bat Farm. I love Bat Farm.
It's so fun.
Sometimes she and I especially would just break out in song in the middle of whatever we were doing and sing a couple verses, and the kids loved it.
Yeah. We'd say something and all of a sudden, oh, that's a song.
And we pulled a record out, and the kids are like, that is a huge CD.
All I remember is that we ended up with a whole bunch of little kids in the counter rocking.
Yeah.
To instruments. That was our disco.
This video of Sweet Child of Mine, and it just seemed perfect. And so I brought it to Jenny, and I was like, Jenny, can we do this? Like, please say we can do this, because the kids were just adorable in it. So she got it approved. Thank you, Pastor Crystal. And she's like, if we're going to do this, we're going to keep it a secret from Gail. And we did it, and it went off without a hitch. Gail didn't find out about it, and all the parents seemed to love it. The kids were great.
Through the years, by the time we would get to closing program, most of the children would be singing, which just really thrilled me because it made me think that they were really enjoying the music.
With us using our imagination and the looks on the kids when they were like, huh? What? But yeah, I think the imagination went a long way with helping develop these kids.
But we would have pretend vacations. And that was always a fun time. And we always did it in the winter time because it's a dull time. And I know we went to Hawaii one time, and I was talking to Ruthie Tetrick. We had we went camping one time, and she couldn't get the tent up. Well, I think it had to be on a Wednesday because Paul Gilman and Glenn Vitt were here still. So they helped her put the tent together. We always had it in the sanctuary, up in the fellowship hall. But the men's Methodist men came on Wednesday mornings. In fact, they would leave coffee and donuts if they had leftovers for us. So we always liked when they did that. But in the community too, we would go out and we always went for Halloween to the courthouse and even went to other places. And then we would go on Mother's Day or May baskets, and we would take May baskets to them that the kids had made. And if we looked, they were still there each year. Then they would switch them out, the one from one year to another year. So they had lots of good memories. Seeing them in Corn School, lots of fun together. It was good for the kids and good for us and the community, I felt.
Some of my favorite field trips that we've done here at the preschool have been Folt's Bakery. We have gone to the post office, to both of the banks that are here in town. And then one of my favorite field trips is we go to Linder's Tavern on Main, and Josh and Adrian Linder let all of the kids make a pizza for their snack, and then we stay there and play and color while our pizza cooks, and then we eat our pizza and come back to the church.
We would take the kids to visit the nursing home. They showed the residents how they played with a parachute. They would bounce balls on it until they all flew off. The children would jump up and down, hanging onto its sides, laughing. Nursery home residents loved it all, of course, even when the balls landed on them.
One of the things that we did as a service project, we made Valentines and took them out to the nursing home.
Back at the school, we would make nursing home residents cards. The children loved glitter. Our custodian at the time, Christine Kinsinger, would be cleaning it up for weeks.
Corn School's kind of a big deal around here, so our preschool always does a float. We have won quite a bit of money and ribbons and awards off of our float, and the kids have a lot of fun.
And the kids really enjoyed, we didn't have the playground here or anything, and so we would walk to the park when it was nice, and every time it was nice, we tried to walk down there and do things there.
Paul Cap comes in and he brings an antique apple press, and he shows all our kids the 5 steps to making apple cider. Then he leaves apple cider here for the kiddos to enjoy at snack time.
We took the children out to our pig farm one time, and they all got to ride on a wagon. We rode on the wagon ride, and then they got to see all the different size pigs, and then the little baby pigs, Henry would pick up one, and so they could pet it.
Here, one year we also had Career Day, where we ended up having 26 different businesses who came into the church, and they shared like what their job was about, and what they did, and like we had a fire truck and a race car. The tractor came in, the vet's office brought in a cat. Like, there were so many people here, and Paul Cap had so much apple cider that we had apple cider and Lucy's ice cream for snack.
But we were thrilled to have that kitchen down there, the little kitchenette at the end of the classrooms. That added a lot because we like to cook with the kids and do things like that and prepare things. So that kitchenette was a real boon.
That I remember a lot is the cooking. We always try to get cooking involved in whatever lessons or whatever we were doing, and the surprise on a lot of the kids' faces when they tasted things they never had tasted before. Pineapple. You know, they had never tasted pineapple, and to taste it for the first time, it was really fascinating. And to watch them, they have to wash their hands, you know, before we cook, and they were so proud because they got to eat it at snack time.
And I think how it was made.
How it was made, yes.
And I started a Thanksgiving feast, and we all brought different vegetables. I assigned each kid a different vegetable, and then we read Stone Soup, that is a story that goes with vegetable soup, and we made vegetable soup. And
we would make ice cream sundaes. We would bake cupcakes, cookies, and cornbread for Thanksgiving feast.
Macaroni and cheese, kids' favorite food. I made macaroni and cheese from scratch for that meal. All of the Kraft macaroni and cheese was gone. Mine was almost all there.
But I think we did a lot of hands-on type of activities with the kids. That's one of the things I, remember. And, we would make the clay that they would use, and we, just did a lot of putting the pictures were done with just bare minimum necessities. We didn't have a lot of money to do it. And so you did things which really, I think, was better in looking back, because then they could do things like that at home. They could make their own Play-Doh. They could do some of the cooking activities. So I think that was not really a negative.
Well, I was kind of like the messy teacher. We would paint with pudding and with Jell-O. We had glitter everywhere.
The glitter. Christine always loved that.
And the glitter, I'd wipe it off and put it in their hair.
Yeah.
Well, we did shaving cream too.
Oh, we did.
We did shaving cream.
Cleaned
Well, that
the
helped
table
clean
with
it up,
shaving
yeah.
cream.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed that as much as the kids did.
And then we always celebrated Grandparents' Day at preschool, and we made, I remember that year that they made, they took big popsicle sticks, and they made little people's faces on them and so on, had a magnet on it. And the grandparents really had a good time. We sang songs with them and did things together with them.
And I always remember we had this little refrigerator, and we had this red juice we would make. And we had 2 gallons of red juice in there. Well, one of the red juices fell out of the refrigerator, and it kind of went down the hallway. Sarah comes out, and she looks at me, and I go to get the other red juice, and that one falls over. We got 2 gallons of juice running down the hallway. And Sarah said, Dale, just go to the classroom. I'll take care of it.
Every year, Jeannie and I would make their Christmas gifts for the kids. We were night owls back in the day. We'd be on the phone working away. Are you done yet? The night before, probably, mostly.
And one thing that I could remember from going to school here and growing up here was that every year the teachers handmade our Christmas gifts. So that is one thing that we continued.
Remember that Christmas? He asked me, what do you want for Christmas? I said, I hope Santa brings me a red car. And I don't know what got into him, but he brought me a little red car. He says, in case you don't get a red car, here's you a red car. I still have that little red car in my china cabinet.
I do want to tell one story about a closing program. We were outside. The children were against the fence at for the library, and somebody had lost one of their helium balloons, and it was at the tail end of a song. I saw them looking, so I said, okay, go watch the balloon. They ran to the fence, turned around, watched it. It disappeared from sight, and I said, okay, let's come finish our program. And they did. They came back and probably sang even better.
You know, that's one of the things. We never turned anybody away.
No
matter what.
Yeah.
No. We took anybody and everybody. If we could do it, we would do it.
Many children who attended nursery school told others First United Methodist Church was their church family. Parents asked if they could pray in our sanctuary. God cared for and blessed us. People from our congregation prayed for us regularly. The kind words they expressed were so dearly treasured.
Well, and after I started then in the elementary school, some of the students we had here came through classes when I was teaching.
And the amazing part about me being at the intermediate school now is the very first class that I was Jenny's teacher assistant is in 6th grade. So I will get them to watch them walk the halls before they go to the junior high. And my very last class this year are kindergartners. So for the next 6 years, I will get to follow all of those students. So I'm super excited about that. And I get hugs from one of the, like a couple of the 3rd graders that are pre-K students. They come in every day and I get a hug from them, at least once, if not twice a day. So they all know me as Mrs. Thornsberry, and they all come in and give me hugs and say hi. And so I do get to see a lot of the pre-K students.
My actual first year preschool class will be freshmen this year. Yeah. It's hard to believe. Andrew's class, was my first preschool class. So it's really been interesting to watch them remember how they were in preschool and then go to a band concert or a track meet or a tennis game and see how much they've changed in just 10 years and how they've grown. So yeah, my first class is freshman this year.
That was the year that I volunteered, and now some of those girls from our preschool class, I coach in cheerleading now.
I taught here, and then I taught out at the high school. I was an instructional assistant out at the high school. And one day I was walking down the hallway at the high school, and 3 of the girls that we had in preschool were out in the hallway reading to each other. So I went over and sat down next to them and just listened to them read. And then when they got done, I looked at them and I had a tear running down and I said, I used to read to you and now you just read to me. And that was really cool.
Do you know, to have these special connections to these kids? Because I remember little Zachary Wilkins. I mean, he was like my little honey down there. And after he grew up, I got invited to his graduation party. He bought me a gift for being his teacher all those years. And I still have that.
Her name is Morgan Campbell.
Morgan.
She is a friend in Facebook, and I keep tabs on this young lady because she is studying to be a attorney. She's taking her tests very soon, within the next couple of weeks. So I am so proud of her.
One father went there, and he lived in Ligonier, and he brought his kids up because he liked the preschool, so that they would drive up here. So I thought that was quite nice.
I came home for a visit during corn school one year, actually, and I went uptown to check out the preschool's float, and Sarah Vanderbeck and all of the, what I call the OG, the original girls, they were up there with all the kids. And Alex, he was a tiny baby, and Andrew, I think, was maybe 2. And Caitlin and I went to talk to Sarah and see how things were going. And I said, one day I'm gonna move back here. I'm gonna work for you. And so after Zach deployed, his contract was up. We came back home, and I came in for Meet the Teacher night, I believe. And they said, hey, we have an opening. Would you be willing to apply? So I took the boys home and came back and applied. And Caitlin actually came with me. We volunteered for a few days, and then I think you volunteered the first year.
I was here, yeah, for a year. I volunteered for a year.
And then another position came open, and she applied for that, and that's kind of how we got started here.
Yep. That last year, I had to bring in my youngest son, who's now in kindergarten. He came to preschool here. And we were taking pictures, my daughter and I taking pictures of him, doing the first day introduction and stuff. And my oldest, who's 20 years the senior, I sent him pictures of what he was doing, and he called me right away. He said, where is this? And I said, it's at the preschool. And he says, what preschool? And I said, the preschool that you went to when we all grew up with. And he's like, I remember that carpet. And I said, you do? And he said, yes. He goes, I remember Mrs. Vanderbeek unwrapping it and laying it out. We had to fold it the other way for it to unroll. He said, I remember. And then he said, we sat there and we talked for like an hour.
Remember Mrs. Waltz? So I told her to call me ma'am.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so she called me ma'am all the time. And even after school, she still called me ma'am. And now she works at the library. And they had a dinner for all the librarians and the people that work there. And my husband and I are friends of the library, so we were there. And she goes, oh, it's ma'am.
I remember we had Brian May, and it was kind of a shock to go to the funeral home for the first time and see him there as the director, but a nice, good to see him there. And I run into him at the Lima elevator, and he's like, well, how is Mrs. Bond today? And he's just real concerned about my life, and has just really touched me because
it was a blessing from God to work at the nursery school. Thanks for the privilege and honor. Ruthie Tetra.